Arabia. You see that on the picture there. They come from the area of Arabia. But Jews, they come from Judea, which is part of Israel. So the very name reveal who the people that are indigenous to the land really are. It's their land. Arabs have come from another part of the world, they are not originally from Israel. Listen to this quote here. It's quite amazing. This is one of Hamas spokespeople who said on Egyptian television in 2012, I have to turn around in order to read this. Praise Allah, all of us have Arab roots, and every Palestinian in the Gaza Strip and throughout Palestine can prove his Arab roots. Whether from Saudi Arabia, Yemen, or anywhere else, half of the Palestinians are Egyptians, and the other half are Saudis. Wait with that slide a little bit. Just look at that quote. You see, sometimes they tell the truth. And the reason why this spokesperson for Hamas is saying this on Egyptian television at this time was because he was upset that the Arabs don't support the so-called Palestinians. And he explaining to them, we are all Arabs. We come from either Saudi Arabia or Egypt. Why don't you support us? Okay. Let's look at another thing. If you go next slide here, you will see where when you start to dig into the ground, you will not find Palestinian artifacts. You will find Jewish artifacts. This is a clay seal, 2,500, 600 years old, that it was found in Jerusalem, in the part that is called the City of David. The name in ancient Hebrew script here is found in Jeremiah chapter 38 and verse 1. It's, let's see here what it says. It's Yuchal, the son of Shlemiah. And in that same verse, you have another man with a name that has also been found on a clay seal in the same place. This is just one little example. The Jewish people have a written history for 4,000 years, recorded history for 4,000 years in the land of Israel. Yeah. Whose land is it? And now they have been away from the land for almost 2,000 years until our day. But during those 2,000 years, the Jewish people prayed at least 3 times every day that God would bring them back again to their own land. For 2,000 years, at least 3 times. In fact, after every meal that they eat, they pray for God to restore them back to the land of Israel. So I don't think there is any people group in the whole world that has such a strong attachment to a piece of land as the Jewish people have had for 4,000 years to their own land, Israel. Let's go to the next slide here. So in 1920, I'm going to give you some history here that is important. In 1920, after World War I, the leading powers of the world met in San Remo in Italy to decide what to do with the Turkish Ottoman Empire that had lost the war in the World War I. So the area, including the land of Israel, and by the way, in the New Testament, the land is called not Palestine, it's called Israel. You can read that in Matthew chapter 2 when the angel told Joseph, go back to the land of Israel. So that's the New Testament name of the land. Palestine is something different. I'm coming to that in a moment. But so they met to decide what to do with the Turkish Ottoman Empire that had ruled over Israel and the Middle East for 400 years. So they gave parts of the land to the Arabs, but the British part of Palestine that was given to the British after the war, they recognized the Jewish people's historic right to re-establish their ancient homeland in Palestine. So that is a decision that was made in 1920. To the Arabs, they gave Iraq, they gave Syria, they gave Lebanon, but Palestine, that the area was called at that time, it was given, not just given to the Jewish people like saying, okay, where shall we find a place for the Jews to have their own land? They recognized that the Jewish people have an ancient history and therefore in the land, and therefore a right to establish their homeland there. So this decision was later ratified by the former UN, which was before World War II, called the League of Nations. In 1922, the League of Nations ratified or confirmed the decision in San Remo, and gave the authority to the British Empire to implement that decision, to help the Jewish people restore their homeland in Palestine. That means that to this very day, this is founded in international law. But we have a war about the truth. So today, the governments of the world are trying to turn this upside down. But the decision that was ratified by the League of Nations in 1922 to give Palestine to the Jewish people as their ancient homeland, to restore their homeland again there, it is something that is still valid in international law. Because the UN, we're coming to the UN now after World War II, when they were established in 1945, I have something written here concerning 1947, but when they were established in 1945, they adopted all the decisions that had been made by the League of Nations. And one of those decisions was to the right of the Jewish people to a homeland in Palestine. Are you following me? You're not going to sleep? Good. So this is a great, very, very important. However, after the decision was made in 1922 by the League of Nations, certain Arabs, because of the religion of Islam, started to rebel against that decision. Because, why? Because according to Islam, land that has once been ruled by Islam can never be given back to any other people. In Islamic religion, you cannot accept Jewish sovereignty in any piece of land in the Middle East that has been ruled by Islam. That is the basic root of this conflict. Not all Arabs accept that, and not all Muslims either accept that, but according to Islam, if you really want to be faithful to the Quran and to Islam, it is impossible to accept Jewish sovereignty in any part of the Middle East because it has once been ruled by Islam. This is the foundation to really the root to the conflict that we have and the wars that seem impossible to solve. One of the reasons that they seem to be impossible to solve it is because they refuse to accept the facts. And if you cannot accept the truth, you cannot come up with a solution that will really be a solution. But let's go back to that picture again. So in 1947, it was decided against the decision, both in San Remo and the League of Nations, to divide what was then left of Palestine that had once been given to the Jewish people in San Remo in 1920, which was only 20%, because 80% was given right after that to the Jordan, Kingdom of Jordan. So 20% was left. The Arabs were not satisfied. Why were they not satisfied? Because they will not be satisfied with anything until what you hear today on the streets all over the world, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. That is Islamic ideology. You cannot accept Israel as a nation, period. So, but they decided to divide the land, and the reason I want to emphasize this decision on November 29, 1947, in the General Assembly of the UN, is because they decided to divide the land into a Jewish and an Arab state. Where is Palestine in this? Palestine, the Palestinian people, did not exist when that decision was made. An Arab Palestinian people did not exist in 1947. We have been sold a lie. And I'm going to quote one of the American politicians that you will know, that is the only one that I've heard spoke the truth about this conflict. So let's go to the next slide now. I just want to show you that before Israel became a nation in 1948, the Jerusalem Post, which is maybe the most famous of the news magazines in Israel, it was called Palestine Post. Do you see that? But in 1948, Israel became a nation, so they changed the name from Palestine Post to Jerusalem Post. The same with what is today called the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra. Before 1948, it was called Palestine Philharmonic Orchestra. Why? Because Palestine was associated with Jewish people, not with Arabs. And I'm going to quote Arab leaders to show you and prove that to you. Let's go to the next slide. In 1937, the British, before World War II, tried to solve the conflict between the Jews and the Arabs by dividing the land already then, in 1937. And here is a quote by an Arab leader before the British Peel Commission in 1937. There is no such country as Palestine. Palestine is the term the Zionists invented. Palestine is alien to us. Quote by Avni Abdul Hadi in 1937, an Arab leader. Palestine has nothing to do with Arabs. You see, even the word Palestine is not Arabic, because Arabs cannot pronounce P. It doesn't come, it's not an Arab name. Next quote. Very important. PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, that eventually became Palestine Authority today,